Welcome to the Game of Satoshi livestream. This is the world's first cinematic Bitcoin puzzle game. This is where you can decode Satoshi's enigma so you can learn, win, and master financial freedom one episode at a time. Every week, we take you inside the story of money's hidden history, the problems that Bitcoin solves, and the choices that will shape your future. Each episode on this channel delivers a clear lesson, an interactive puzzle, and a path for you to level up, whether you're a first-timer or a hardcore Bitcoiner. We're just about to start the live stream show where we'll offer real-time challenges, giveaways, interviews with Bitcoin experts, and answer your questions. So grab your coffee or drink of choice and lock in. Here we go. Welcome back, everybody, to the Game of Satoshi. This is the live show that's associated with the Game of Satoshi game, and it is going to be a great conversation today because we're going to be bringing in somebody that's going to help us not have to ever sell our Bitcoin. I think I speak for maybe many of us, myself personally. I have sold Bitcoin in the past and have now grown to obviously regret that. So the reason why many of us maybe have sold is we didn't have any other option if we wanted to realize some of the potential gain from what we've actually stacked, right? From the stats and the Bitcoin that we've stacked. So recently, this phenomenon of getting Bitcoin loans has really sprung up and become very, very popular. And this is an industry and a product that is quickly maturing and becoming something that's very, very valuable for us Bitcoiners. So we are all in for a very, very big treat today because we have Igor Neumann from Firefish. And Firefish is essentially, as you can see here, if you guys want to check out their website, firefish.io, it's an open market for Bitcoin-backed loans. So it is certainly a company built by and meant for Bitcoiners. And I'm really interested in this because I plan to, moving forward, never sell my Bitcoin. But in order to be able to do that, I need to figure out a way to actually use it as a useful asset as leverage to unlock some liquidity for myself. And so I think Igor might be the actual person and Firefish might be the actual company that would allow me and maybe many of you guys to actually do this. So it's going to be a great conversation. If you guys have any questions for Igor about Firefish, about Bitcoin backed loans, and we're going to get into all the weeds, okay? We're going to ask about where is the Bitcoin going to be held? We're going to ask about how are the interest rates set? Are there monthly, annual payments? What are the risks? How is Firefish different from a lot of the companies back in 22, 23 that blew up and, didn't show to be a very, very profitable company or very ethical companies? So we're going to go into all of the details of this and really find out exactly what value proposition Firefish can offer us. So if you have particular questions, please do use that Slido link in the description box below to make sure you ask Igor your particular question or just upvote a previous question that was asked. Also this week, we're going to be giving away our prizes as we usually do. And 2 of those prizes will go to commenters from this week's episode and mission. Okay, so if you go to the channel, the videos that were released on Saturday and Tuesday this week, you just need to leave a comment, more than one word, and do that basically by, the middle of the show. That's when we're going to start that giveaway. And you could potentially win some great prizes today. And of course, we're going to have our top comment of the week. That's going to basically be our first prize that we will give away for those of you that are being very, very encouraging and very participatory with this movement. Of course, you can join, you can sign up and get started with the Game of Satoshi anytime. Just because you're just discovering this right now doesn't mean you're too late. Click on the link below, you get signed up for free, get into the players area, and you can start with mission 1 and work your way all the way up to what's going on this week with our episodes and our missions, okay? So it's never too late to get started. You can still participate with us and be a part of this great movement and also get yourself educated about Bitcoin and potentially win a good amount of Bitcoin as a result, okay? So without further ado, I would like to bring in Igor into the conversation so we can get to know him and about his backstory with Bitcoin. So Igor, thank you so much for joining us today, man. We're really excited to have you here on the Game of Satoshi live stream. Let's just have you go ahead and start us off with what is one Bitcoin truth that you wish everybody in the world could just understand instantly?
Yeah, hi Jesse, and thanks for having us. Really a great pleasure. I mean, the one truth, honestly, I do think it's that you can really never sell your Bitcoin, that you can really live of it, right? I mean, it is a concept that maybe sometimes is slightly counterintuitive, considering, Bitcoin volatility, considering, the price action, considering the options that you have in the market. But I think if more people do understand that Bitcoin is really the ultimate asset, and that you as a Bitcoiner now have the opportunity to never sell it, to hold on to your Bitcoin stack for as long as you want, I think that would change a lot of Bitcoiners' lives, right? So that's the one thing that I would point out.
That's a great point, and I share that sentiment. That's basically what I can say about that. Do you remember the moment that you first learned about Bitcoin and it just clicked for you? The technology and the proposition of it and the value that it was going to be able to add to your life and to the world really compelled you to take it very seriously. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I would say in my life, in my Bitcoin life, basically there are two phases or two key stages actually that I went through. The first one was like I think it was around 2014, 2015, when I started digging into Bitcoin through the blockchain technology, right? So I used to work for a big corporation, and we've been sort of investigating, what are the capabilities of this new technology, how it works, if we can leverage it internally, plug it into our products and so forth. So I first went into Bitcoin through this. And at that time, actually, and I don't think even many of my even colleagues know that I was really trying to learn as much as I could around Bitcoin, and I was running a full node already in 2015, right? So I don't think anyone from Firefish did it at that early phase. And then later, I spent a lot of or big part of my career in trading, in prop trading. So or I used to look at Bitcoin as a new asset, a new commodity that is traded 24/7, that is pretty liquid, that is pretty volatile, which is also good if you're a trader, right? So I've been sort of playing, buying, selling Bitcoin, and basically stopped at that time, right, in terms of my further education around Bitcoin, which is a shame because just like you, I do regret that I did sell my Bitcoin, considering that this was really many years ago. And the second phase, when I really started understanding and started kind of falling into the rabbit hole, and into, in particular, the cultural slash philosophical rabbit hole of Bitcoin, was actually when that was, I think, around 5 years ago, 6 years ago. I used to live in Russia, actually. During my career, and as we all know, there's a war going on with Ukraine. And when the war started, I was, as a foreigner in Russia, I was basically labeled as a citizen of a enemy country, right? And that also meant that I wasn't able to do any bank transfers, and my salary was actually local. I had an account in a local bank. And then our company decided to shut down the business. I was moving back to Europe, but I didn't have any chance of moving my money basically physically to Europe, right? So if you wanted to take cash, there were certain limits, but obviously I would need to fly in and out, and carry a lot of banknotes, which is obviously not something you want to do. So at that time, I really started, and I was talking to a couple of my friends around from the community, and they actually proposed an idea like, why don't I convert actually part of my savings at least into Bitcoin, or potentially stable coins, and transfer the money this way. And then that was the moment when it clicked that actually Bitcoin is really something that is fully in your ownership, that it's something that stays with you wherever you go. It doesn't know the borders. It doesn't know, it doesn't think about the governments, so it's just you and your seed phrase basically that you carry with you. And that was the moment when it clicked, when I really started understanding and learning even more about what it actually means, so the self-sovereignty, self-custody, and all these concepts that were, for me initially as a trader or someone looking at the technology, were sort of out of the scope. So that was, I think, the moment when I really realized that Bitcoin is super unique. It has really all these attributes that actually can change your life in really very hard life situations, for example. And that was the moment when I really started falling deeper into the rabbit hole.
It's great. And I'm curious too about your backstory in finance, because obviously you're in this financial products company. Did you have a history in the finance world? Is this the first kind of company you've been involved with, loans and financing and that kind of a thing? What's your history in this kind of sector?
Yeah, so I started, as I mentioned, I did spend some time in trading. So I started my trading career during the dot-com bubble, which was also, I'm not sure if it was the greatest of the times. It was at the end of the dot-com bubble, basically, when it started bursting. So it was a very, very difficult period for me as a junior trader, to understand and to kind of comprehend what's actually happening in the markets. So I'm sort of in this trading layer of my career for some time, and then later on I joined a company called Thomson Reuters, and later London Stock Exchange Group, and these are gigantic global companies. So we were basically providing financial information services for financial institutions, banks, trading companies, and all that, trading platforms as well, data feeds and things like that. So basically, I really spent most of my career in these corporations, working with financial markets professionals, and that's where I kind of learned how the markets are structured, from all those particular segments like foreign exchange, equities, commodities trading, investment banking, and so forth. So I really spent most of my career in this field. And yeah, with Firefish, we started roughly 3 years ago, and we took the notion of collateralization of assets and basically the credit market, and try to sort of build a bridge between what was broken in Bitcoin at that time and really started building something for like I would call it the new credit rails actually for Bitcoin. So that's my path.
Now I'm curious. So, as a trader, yeah, you probably have an interesting perspective on price action and what happens in markets. This year, Bitcoin was expected to do fairly well in the fourth quarter. Again, we're not fully done, still got a couple of weeks, but so far it's been pretty underwhelming. I'm curious if you have a theory, a thought. Some people think it's the major banks manipulating things to get themselves well positioned to adopt it. Others think it's the OGs that have held on to hundreds of coins from 10, 15 years ago, now selling. Do you have a take on what is happening with the price action of Bitcoin in the last month?
I mean, and this is the interesting thing. Like, who was actually who was setting these expectations, right? Who said that? Yeah, this year is going to be great, right? Based on what? Like, where's the magic ball that is telling you where the future will be? So, to be fairly honest, I'm a little skeptical after all those years really spent in trading, about trying to forecast the future price, movements and all that. There's always so many elements or factors that are influencing the price action. Really, and now you can, and always obviously with the benefit of hindsight, you can say, oh yeah, it was because of the whales were selling. Oh yeah, it was because of the Wall Street, this and that. I do understand, and I know that there are a lot of people who are following this 4-year cycle thing. Honestly speaking, when I heard it for the first time, I was like, yeah, it works until it stops, right? And that's, I think, what happened now. So I don't want to obviously shoot down any efforts in terms of trying to forecast the price movement. And I really spent a lot of my career trying to forecast where the price will be in particular time frame. But honestly speaking, to me, the only theory that I would say is valid, or the way that I explain what's happening, is that it's a market, right? The market structure has been honestly changing in the last couple of years. We know that initially Bitcoin and crypto, maybe in general, have been, or the price action has been driven mostly by retail and speculators. Since the last 2 years, we have a lot of institutional finance and liquidity in the market. So I think the market structure has changed, and the price movements and what's been happening is literally just a function of supply and demand, right? There's more supply than demand, and that's the reason why prices are going down. But this is, I think, the one thing that I've also learned with Bitcoin the hard way, is that Bitcoin is something that you want to hold on to for many years, right? It's not And again, as speaking as a trader, a speculative asset, but it's really something very unique. It is a commodity. You can trade it, of course, but it has many, many more benefits to you and your life compared to any other asset, right? So, to me, this is just it's a part of the market movement. It's part of the game of the supply and demand. And I don't honestly care who's causing this. I do believe that Bitcoin is the asset of the future, and I'm holding on to it. And I sometimes, of course, when I see a sharp price drop, it gets me slightly nervous. But it's not as if I was a day trader and I've been checking my margins and positions and all that. So in a couple of words, I would say I don't care what's been happening in the markets.
Yeah, it's funny about that is that, the simple explanation is that there's just more sellers than buyers. That sort of explains it. Will not go viral on X, right? But the conspiracy theories go super viral because they're interesting. And so those are the ones that we all hear more about, and we don't hear the more plainly just kind of boring explanation of like, that's what happens with supply and demand. So I appreciate that you have that sort of very kind of calm, kind of sober point of view about it. It's like, who knows? But like for sure, there's more sellers than buyers. That seems to be sort of what you can always hold on to. So cool. We're almost at the end of the year here, kind of rounding up the end of the 2025. Do you have a maybe bullish prediction for price of Bitcoin in US dollars in 2026? Anything you can share with us?
I mean, I would undermine what I just said, right? That I'm not trying to forecast the future, wherever Bitcoin will be. I mean, it's funny actually. We just recently I found an article from one of the local newspapers. We had an interview last year, 2024, I think. It was in April, where my co-founder Martin was interviewed, and they asked him about like what's your take on the price of Bitcoin in 2024, and that was the beginning of the sort of a new bull run, and he was forecasting 250K, right? So now in hindsight, we see that it has been a little overstretched forecast. But for me personally, as I said, I don't have any particular sort of price level. I obviously would love, just like everybody else, if Bitcoin carries on its own way. We know that it's an asset that by default needs to appreciate. If it's gonna be 100, if it's gonna be 150 or 250K, it's super hard to tell. I don't have any particular model in my mind. As I said, to me, Bitcoin is a longer term or long term play. So that's why I wouldn't be just shooting any particular number, to be fairly honest with you.
Fair enough. Have to always ask. So I appreciate that, man. All right, guys, we're going to do our first giveaway. And when we come back very shortly, we're going to dive into the weeds of Firefish, of getting a loan against your Bitcoin and finding out how to ensure you stay safe, you stay responsible, and how you make sure you get your Bitcoin back at the end of the loan. So we're going to definitely get into all those details. So do not go away. We'd appreciate if you guys could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave a like under the video if you guys are enjoying this conversation. That would be great. All right, let's go ahead and go to our first giveaway. This is going to be for the Block Hunters Bitcoin board game, which, by the way, you can use the promo code TGOS21 to get 21% off if you'd like to go and get yourself a copy, just in case you don't win today, but you'd like to get yourself a copy. It's at blockhuntersgame.com. We appreciate their support here on the show and for the game. So this is going to be the first giveaway for the top comment of the week. So for those of you that have been very active on our channel and leaving comments, and specifically effort posts and putting out some really high quality comments for us to read and enjoy, we will basically subjectively select those every single week. And this week, the winner for this will be Tom ADO 23. Tom's comment was, "These episodes are getting tougher and tougher. POW suddenly feels personal." Well done, Tom. Congrats to you. Make sure you do reach out to the team, info@thegameofsatoshi.com, and just verify your user name on YouTube so that you could get this game of this Block Hunters board game sent and mailed right off to you. So congrats to you, Tom. And thanks to all of you guys that leave us these great comments every single week. It obviously helps grow the movement, grow the channel, and it just keeps us very, very alive and active here in this movement. So we appreciate you guys. Okay, that now out of the way. Also, make sure you guys can still ask your questions below as a reminder. So that Slido link that's in the description box, if you have a question. I'm going to go through a lot of stuff here with Igor in just a minute. But if there's something that I didn't cover, a particular question you have about your situation, this would be your chance to ask Igor and about what they offer at Firefish. So take advantage of that now. And yes, if there is, if you still haven't left a comment under this week's episode and mission, you still have time to do that before our next giveaway. So make sure you do that as well. But let's go ahead and bring Igor back in. Igor, all right, let's get into the weeds of Firefish and the services you guys provide. So let's start off with the 10,000 foot view. What does Firefish actually do? What is your business?
So yeah, I mean, as you said, we are an open marketplace for Bitcoin-backed loans, right? And I think that summarizes it pretty well. Meaning that as a marketplace, you have obviously two sides. You have borrowers who are holders of Bitcoin. They never want to sell their Bitcoin, but they have some sort of funding need. They need liquidity basically. And on the other side, you have lenders, basically people or even institutions who are long fiat or stable coins, and they're looking for a yield on their assets, right? So Firefish is basically a marketplace which basically connects these two parties. What's very important, we're literally a neutral player in this game, so we are not the ones providing loans from our balance sheet, let's say, and also we're not a custodian, right? We're not custodian of your collateral, your Bitcoin. This is, I think, a big difference between maybe Firefish and maybe some other providers in the market. There are a lot of them popping up almost every week. We've built something what we call a non-custodial protocol, meaning your Bitcoin is actually locked directly on blockchain, and it stays there until you either repay your loan or you default in a worst case scenario, or you are liquidated due to the price action, right? So we're not holders of your Bitcoin. We're literally just a marketplace that is actually helping you to connect with your counterparty, and we're helping you with our technology to securely lock your Bitcoin on blockchain.
Let's just get into that specific part of it. So I come to you guys, I say I want to get a Bitcoin loan. You guys say, great, here are the terms, and we're going to basically put your Bitcoin on chain, locked up in a wallet, in an account. Who holds the keys to that? Is it transparent? Am I able to see it at all times? Give me sort of the reassurance that my Bitcoin is safe and that it is secure.
Yeah, I would maybe correct slightly at the very beginning. So basically, you as the borrower, and I think this is also a big difference between, let's say, centralized lenders and a marketplace like ours, is that you as the borrower, you are setting up your terms, right? You come to the platform and you say, hey, I want to borrow 10,000 USDC or euros for, let's say, 12 months at this particular interest rate, right? So you see, obviously, there are bids in the marketplace, but you as the borrower, you are setting up your terms, and you only need to wait for an investor or for a lender to kind of be matched, or to match or to appreciate your bid and being matched with you. So that's the difference, because normally when you come to a bank, the bank is setting the terms, right? They tell you, how much money you can get, for what tenors, what is the interest rate, and, what is the structure of the loan and stuff like that. In our case, you as the borrower, you, the Bitcoiner, you're the one who's setting up the terms. Now, in terms of the Bitcoin itself, so what you as a borrower are doing, you are basically locking your Bitcoin collateral in what we call an escrow address, right? So you as the borrower, you generate an escrow address directly on blockchain to which you send your Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin stays locked there until, and obviously you can see it in like mempool or whatever, the particular address, and the Bitcoin stays locked there until you, as I mentioned, either repay your loan or you default. There's a couple of other important things to mention. First and foremost, it sounds maybe slightly esoteric, and we also do not like to use the term smart contract, but basically what we've developed is a combination. So the escrow address itself is a combination of multi-sigs. We're using 3 out of 3, which is also slightly unusual. And also we're using partially signed transactions. So you as the borrower, you at the very beginning of the process, you are signing with the key that you hold. So you hold one key. You are signing or pre-signing actually the transactions, basically meaning that you are actually giving green light to particular actions, what can happen to your Bitcoin, right? So, and there are only 4 things that can happen to your Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin either can be sent back to you, so if you repay the loan, right? Bitcoin can be moved to a liquidator. So that's the second address, a liquidator, in case you default. So for example, after 1 month, or sorry, after 1 year, you don't repay your loan, the investor, the lender has to be protected. So the liquidator then sells the Bitcoin and covers the lender. Then what can happen as well, as we know, Bitcoin is volatile, that when a Bitcoin reaches a particular liquidation price, which you are aware of since the very beginning of the loan, then you get liquidated as well. So again, Bitcoin goes to the liquidator, and then the fourth transaction actually that you as the borrower are pre-signing is what we call a zombie apocalypse transaction, meaning in the worst case scenario, if Firefish disappears, if everybody disappears, the worst case scenario, what could happen is the Bitcoin stays locked on the escrow address, right? Which is something that we don't want to do. I don't want to happen. So that's why this particular fourth address is what we call a recovery transaction, which is basically a transaction that is valid by default 1 month after the maturity of the loan. So imagine zombie apocalypse, Firefish disappears, your Bitcoin is locked, your loan has expired. For example, you repaid the loan and no one was able to return your Bitcoin back. So that's why you have actually this particular transaction that is pre-signed, but it's with a time lock on, and the time lock is really this 1 month after the maturity. So once you broadcast this transaction after this period, so 1 month after the maturity, Bitcoin gets unlocked and sent back to you. So as you maybe have noticed, there are only two ways or two addresses where Bitcoin can be sent. So you as the borrower at the very beginning, you are saying like, hey, I want this loan. This is my Bitcoin. I'm going to send it to this address. And this is my return address, right? So an address where you're going to receive your Bitcoin back. And there's a second address, which is the liquidation address, right? Meaning in case of your default, Bitcoin moves to the other address, gets liquidated, and obviously lender gets paid out. So that's slightly, in a bit more detail, the nitty-gritty of the what we call the Firefish protocol, right? So this kind of a smart contract. In terms of the keys, as I mentioned, the first one is held by you. Also, the important thing is it's again a particular nuance. It is something what we call an ephemeral key. So it's a key that you only use at the very beginning of the process, and then it's basically destroyed because you're not signing any further transactions in the future. You do not have to sort of store any particular seed. You do not have to sign any additional transactions and so forth. So that also decreases the amount of sort of effort with the contract. And the two other keys are basically held by Firefish, because we are the ones who actually say that your loan has been repaid or hasn't been repaid. And that's the reason, or we are basically the judge who kind of sends Bitcoin either back to you or for the liquidation.
Okay. And the lender, they don't hold a key to it?
Lender, they do not hold a key, right? So there's also a very specific setup of our protocol. And the key reason why they do not hold a key is because we really wanted to enable, I would say, traditional finance or non-Bitcoin native finance to be able to fund Bitcoin-backed loans, right? So I always use the example of my mom. My mom has some savings, and she was asking me like, hey, where should I put it? I'm kind of retired, and I don't want to invest in stock markets or whatever. I don't understand this. So I was like, look, this is something like a term deposit. You can choose the periods that you prefer. The only thing you as the lender needs to do is to send the money to your counterparty and then receive the money back, right? So for people who are non-Bitcoin native, they do not have to fiddle with any infrastructure. They do not have to sign transactions. So that was one of the key reasons why we decided going this path. What is important to mention at the same time is that in terms of the liquidation, lender, if they're Bitcoin native, they can opt in for so-called self-liquidation mode, which means that they will actually receive the Bitcoin or the part of the Bitcoin from the collateral to their wallet, right? So the lender themselves, they can say, hey, I'm Bitcoin native. I want to receive Bitcoin to my wallet in case of default or price liquidation, or they can opt for what we call Firefish liquidation, just like my mom, where we do it on their behalf, right? So Firefish liquidates Bitcoin and pays off the lender.
Okay, good to know. So, some Bitcoin loan companies, they will have three parties with three keys. It would be the borrower, the lender, and then it would be a third party, right? It would be the sort of neutral third party that would also be able to verify, has the loan been repaid, has it not been repaid, to have that. So how are you guys reassuring your customers, if you guys hold two of the three keys, that you are just being transparent and abiding by sort of the rules of the loans and the contracts that you have with your customers?
Yeah, there's a couple of things I would also mention here. Well, first and foremost, we're an open source company, right? So the full code, the library, the Bitcoin library, and the code basically behind is fully open source, right? So you can find it on our GitHub repository. So anyone who has any doubts can really go through the code. We've also published actually a video which guides you how to compile the code, to test it, whether the results that you're getting from the platform are the same as that you get in your own instance. So I think that's very important to mention. The other thing, when people are asking us, like, yeah, well, but what if you sort of collude with someone, or what if you're the bad actor? The important point to mention is that we, as Firefish, we are not able to steal your Bitcoin, because it can go either back to you or to the liquidator, right? So it's even sometimes basically people ask us, what if police comes, and they ask you to send my Bitcoin to them? Like, we can't do that, right? Because we literally have only two hard-coded addresses where Bitcoin can move. And last but not the least, on top of the technology, we've also delivered and developed, I would say, a pretty robust legal framework, right? So when you're actually matched with a counterparty, so borrower is matched with a lender, there's a legal document that really stipulates all the rights and liabilities of all the parties, right? So if we did something wrong, obviously there would be penalties. That would be, we could get under investigation or whatever. And the same applies to the borrowers and lenders, right? Like when I mentioned the worst case scenario, if Firefish disappeared and borrower wouldn't repay their loan, well, the lender still holds a legal document which stipulates that the borrower should repay the loan back, right? So there's also a legal layer that is protecting all the parties involved.
Very cool. Yeah, you guys have really, really well, thought this out very, very thoroughly. That's really, really cool. I'm in the U.S. We have a lot of viewers that are in Europe, all over the world. Can anybody all over the world use Firefish? Any limitations, restrictions, any areas that just cannot use your services?
Yeah, I mean there are two limitations, I would say. One is obviously sanctioned countries, right? So we're regulated in European Union. So anyone from a sanctioned country, or actually holding an ID from a sanctioned country, wouldn't be able to participate in the platform. And the second limitation for the time being is that the fiat transactions, so we support euros, Swiss franc, and some other European currencies, are enabled for European citizens only, right? For anyone outside of Europe, they can transact at this point in time in USDC stablecoin. So that's the current limitations. We obviously want to evolve and expand into other markets. To be honest, we also played with US dollars at the very beginning of our journey, but sending dollars outside of the US is really very tricky because you need to use the SWIFT system, which is very clunky, very slow, and very expensive, right? So it doesn't really make sense to do dollar transactions, especially in smaller amounts, outside of the US. But obviously, we do have an ambition to go after the US markets, to really bring the proposition to US based Bitcoiners and enable US dollars as well.
Okay. And where are you guys primarily located? Where are you based out of?
We're based in Czech Republic, in Prague, which many people call actually the world's capital of Bitcoin, because there's many companies, actually super successful companies like Trezor, the first hardware wallet, Brainspool, actually our investor at the same time, the first mining pool in the world, General Buys, the first Bitcoin ATM, right? So it seems like it's a hub for great ideas and a lot of companies. So we're based in Czech Republic. At this point in time, most of our users are coming from Europe. At the same time, we already, I think, hit around 70 different individual countries from around the world. So we do have a number of customers from other countries, and we're definitely planning to expand further, as I mentioned.
Very cool. And just very quickly, I want to be very clear on this because there were a lot of companies that got into some trouble offering loans, Bitcoin-backed loans, a couple years back. Rehypothecation, that was one of the biggest issues going on with a lot of these companies. It sounds like, obviously, from what you guys have created, that there is no rehypothecation, meaning that you're not taking the Bitcoin that has been posted as collateral and taking that and lending it out and trying to earn interest on it, correct? Like it's just staying where it's placed and it's just held there as the collateral, right?
Absolutely. I mean, like if you speak to any Bitcoiner, a rehypothecation is almost a almost a swear word, right? So we definitely do not support that. You know, as I mentioned, Bitcoin stays locked for the duration of your loan in one address. You can keep on checking it every single day. It really only moves once you repay the loan or you do not repay the loan, and that's that, right? No rehypothecation. No one is touching, and no one is able to move your Bitcoin for whatever other purpose.
Great. Okay, now I want to get into the specifics of how these loans actually work. So LTV, loan to value. Maybe you can first explain what is LTV for anybody who might not be familiar with that term. How is it useful and applicable for a Bitcoin-backed loan?
So yeah, this is a very important question, and that's something that is very, very relevant actually for both the borrowers and lenders. So LTV literally basically means how much of collateral you pledge against your loan, right? So our default LTV level is 50%. That means if I take, for example, $10,000 worth of loan, I need to deposit twice the amount of Bitcoin, right? So that would be 20K at that price at the moment when I'm locking my collateral. So LTV basically, or the main purpose of over collateralization of these loans is that, as we know, Bitcoin can be sometimes a bit volatile, right? So it can have, it can move 5-10% a day. So in order to really protect the lenders, you need to pledge a bit more of your Bitcoin than the actual loan, right? So by default, as I mentioned, it's 50%. That means Bitcoin would have to fall from the moment you took the loan roughly 50% to get liquidated, unless you top up your collateral, which is, we can obviously talk about it, which is something that many people do. The interesting fact, I would say, is that even though the default level is 50%, we have many more users on the platform that are locking more collateral just really to protect themselves from potential price liquidation, right? So the average LTV on the platform is somewhere between 40 to 45%, right? When people are setting up their loans. Why is that? Bitcoiners never want to lose their Bitcoin. They just want to use the fact that they can collateralize it, get a loan against it. They never want to get liquidated due to a price action. So even now, in the last couple of weeks, we had a record level of top-ups, right? So as Bitcoin started falling pretty dramatically in the last couple of weeks, we've seen, I think it's now around more than 1,000 users that posted a bit more collateral, send more Bitcoin basically to protect their book from being liquidated, right? So this is a very important measure. As I mentioned, it is to protect the lenders from, basically borrowers defaulting on their loans due to the price action.
Yeah, and I think that's something for everybody to be very aware of course, as the price just going from 125,000 to around 80 something it was. It's like a 30% or so drawdown. It's a pretty big move, within a month or so. So that can get scary, and it's like, where's the actual bottom of this thing? And that can be a little bit, nerve-wracking for Bitcoiners. Let's talk about what happens though as you start getting closer to, getting essentially margin called. When your company starts to say, hey, you're getting a little bit too close, and we need to basically have you start posting more collateral. Is there a warning process? Is there a percentage that warning goes out? Is there a time limit that you allow your customers to basically post some more Bitcoin to make a healthier margin? How does that process work?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, managing the LTV, I think is the most important kind of element when you're the borrower, right? So you should be aware of where the price liquidation would be triggered. The platform definitely shows you the level immediately once you lock your Bitcoin. You know when we take the snapshot of the price at the moment of locking your Bitcoin, so you know that okay, this is when you took the loan, and if Bitcoin falls to LTV 95%, so it's the other way around. Bitcoin is falling, LTV is rising. So if the LTV hits 95%, you'll get liquidated, right? So LTV 95 is actually the level at which you'll get your Bitcoin would get liquidated in terms of, or in case of the dramatic drop in the price. Obviously, to protect the borrowers, you know, they first and foremost do receive a number of margin calls, right? So at various LTV levels that are, you know, closer to these 95 levels, you'll get a number of margin calls like emails, SMS messages, you know, and so forth. So just really to make sure that you're aware of this. And at the same time, you as the borrower, you have the opportunity to top up the collateral, right? So it's a very simple process. It takes a couple of seconds, basically just going through the platform, clicking on your loan, setting up the top up collateral process, and then just sending additional Bitcoin to your to that escrow address, basically. Now, we always say, like, you know, you as the borrower, you shouldn't or rule of thumb is that you should never lock all the stack that you have, right? Because you're really then risking the fact that you might get liquidated and you might not have enough additional collateral, additional Bitcoin, basically to send back to the escrow to really decrease your LTV level. So what we're always trying to explain to the borrowers, like, if you want to take a loan, don't look at how much Bitcoin you have right now. Look at maybe half of it, or, you know, just take only a fraction of your stack and use that for the loan, because really the price action can go against you, and you might get punished because of that, right? So as I mentioned, we do have the margin call system as well as the top up ability. In particular scenarios when you are not able to actually top up your collateral, you can also request an early repayment of your loan, right? So you can actually repay your loan earlier, and that would also mean that actually your loan has been closed and you'll get your collateral back.
Okay. Now, if unfortunately that liquidation event comes, you're at 95%. Do you sell the entire Bitcoin? Do you just shave off a portion of it to keep the LTV in a more of a healthy spot? What are the options? Are you pretty much kind of, that's it? If you're at 95%, there's really, you're sort of done. Is there a way for them to just sort of, you know, again, partially sell off that Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, that would, as we're a marketplace, we're literally just connecting, you know, the borrower and the lender. And it would be very difficult if we were doing these kind of partial liquidations and all that, because, you know, then we would need to sort of facilitate also partial sort of repayments of the loans. You know, the legal contracts would get much more complicated and all that. So we went for the you know, simplest way, which is, you know, 95%. That's it, right? So if you do not top up your collateral and your LTV gets to 95%, all of your collateral gets liquidated. Why it is 95%? Because there's this 5% premium for the liquidator, right? So if you're the lender who's receiving the collateral, or in the Firefish liquidation mode, us as Firefish, we need to have a particular buffer to be able to really liquidate the collateral in the market. So this 5% is what we call a liquidation premium for the liquidator, right? So your basically stack would get fully liquidated in case of price action. In terms of default, right, if you do not repay your loan fully, or you do not repay a loan at all, then the proportional amount of your collateral would only get liquidated, right? So it's not the whole collateral. So for example, if I borrow 10K, there's 20K of my Bitcoin locked. I do not repay my 10K. So in that case, only 10K plus this 5% of liquidation would get liquidated, and the rest would be sent back to you.
And that's just all automatically happening.
Absolutely.
Great. So speaking of, you were saying the 5% for the liquidator. Firefish, how are you guys making money? If you guys are just in between these two parties and just helping them find each other and make a deal for the loan, what's your cut in this? How are you guys making money with this business?
Yeah, so at this point in time, and obviously we are, as you can see, we've launched basically the plain vanilla product, which is a bullet loan, peer-to-peer. We are charging borrowers as 1.5% of origination fee, basically, right? So on top of your interest rate, you just need to that you're taking in the platform, you just need to add this 1.5% per annum as the origination fee for Firefish. So that's at this point in time, that's our primary source of revenue. Price liquidations have never happened yet. As I said, like our borrowers are extremely, and we've processed, I think we are reaching $150 million worth of loans in this peer-to-peer model. We haven't had a price liquidation because, borrowers all the time, they're topping up the collateral and everyone wants to get liquidated and all that. So that source of income we haven't tapped yet, but also we're planning to launch actually additional new services in the future. Hopefully early next year, we're going to be launching a very cool feature where you'll be hosting your own sort of, or you'll have your own basically bank account directly on the platform, which will really significantly improve the overall experience and all that. So anyway, we're planning launching additional services which might bring additional sources of revenue. At this point in time, it's the 1.5% per annum origination fee paid by the borrower.
Okay. Now, I go in there, I post what I want to put up there in terms of my Bitcoin. I post what I'm looking for. What's the range of interest rates, like realistically, that I could actually expect right now on your marketplace if I went in there and looked for a loan? And also, how often are requests fulfilled? Is there maybe a barter, kind of a give and take where people are like, well, I'll give you this much, I'm looking for that. Is there a sort of negotiation, or is it just you post up a request and a lender either says yes or no? And if that's how it is, like what percentage of the requests are getting fulfilled?
Yeah, I mean, this is I think this is also the beauty of the marketplace. Like we've seen for example, on euros, which was the first currency that we've launched on the platform, it does definitely depend on the supply and demand in the first place. It also depends on the tenor, right? So we're supporting currently from 3 months all the way to 2 years tenors. So naturally, as it's a bullet loan, that means you're repaid only once at the end of the loan period. Unlike with traditional loans in a bank, when you need to calculate monthly, payments and all that. In our case, you as the borrower, you do one payment at the end at maturity. So really depending on the tenor, if it's 3 months, the rates would be definitely lower than if it's 2 years, right? So the curve would have a typical shape where the 3 months would be the lowest. For euros, as I mentioned, there were times when let's say 12 months, 18 months loans were settled at around 7-8%. Now euros, due to very strong demand by the Bitcoiners, by the borrowers, the rates have shot a little higher, right? So the rates for, let's say, loans for 2 years would be around 12 to 13%. But for the shorter ones, like 3 months, 6 months, where you can do obviously rollovers, right? So I take 3 months, after 3 months, I repay the loan, take another one and another one. 3-month rates are at around, I think, 7%. Interestingly, also for the domestic currency Czech koruna, the rates basically collapsed, and now the rates are almost at the central bank. The 3 months rates are almost at the central bank rates because we have a lot of liquidity coming to the platform from the Czech users. So the more liquidity you have, the more competition between the lenders, the lower the interest rates go, right? So we are also noticing on most of the currencies actually that we're supporting at this time the decline in the interest rate. So right, we ultimately think that this is a trend that will continue because the more liquidity you have on the platform, the more lenders you have on the platform. And the good thing is, like, we see a lot of lenders coming back. They tried one smaller deal, then they tried another one, and once they see that the payments are coming back, that the borrowers are really very disciplined when it comes to the repayments, they start investing more and more. We also actually just recently launched an alternative fund, which helps, I would say, institutional investors, high net worth individuals, family offices, to invest into Bitcoin-backed loans, not on a peer-to-peer basis, which could be kind of tricky for institutions, but through a fund, basically, that is a standardized vehicle for investing. And as I mentioned, this is only proven that the more liquidity you have on the platform, the lower the rates go, right? So really, depending on the currency, depending on the tenor, and depending on the liquidity that we have on the currency, the rates are basically different.
Very good. Could you actually just walk me through, let's say, good to know that it sounds like there's a lump sum that's due at the end of whatever term you agree to, not monthly. Let's say I wanted to do that. Like I wanted to get, a $5,000 loan for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, you said, maybe I can come back and get a new loan. So is that a thing where I'm basically just posting more and more and more Bitcoin every 3 months to basically pay off the previous loan to get an additional loan? Or walk me through exactly how that works. That's a really interesting prospect.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say there are particular nuances that we need to consider that are actually preventing us at this point in time to make it to make the rollover as easy as you would get in a bank, right? So in a bank, when you tell them like, hey, can I roll it over for 3 more months or 3 more years? You can just agree on the terms. Now, with Firefish Marketplace, you have to consider that you have a particular counterparty, right? So it's a peer-to-peer marketplace. So there's someone that actually lends you the money, and you need to return the money back to them. Now, what could happen is that they say, "Well, no, I need the money back," right? So even if you say like, "Hey, I've got extra Bitcoin if needed," they might say like, "Well, I need the money back." So that's one of the challenges, right? And the other one is the time lock, as I mentioned, right? So your every single transaction, every single loan has a specific escrow address, and that escrow address we can't manipulate it, right? So once the time lock is there, we wouldn't be able to change it, right? So even if you with your counterparty would agree to extend the loan, the escrow has to be closed basically because, as I mentioned, 1 month after the maturity, you would be able to withdraw your Bitcoin and stay with Bitcoin as well as the loan funds. So for these kind of reasons, there's not the same way basically of rolling over the loans as you would kind of experience in a traditional institution like a bank. But in terms of the rollovers, the way it works, or the way most of our users roll their loans, which is also maybe good from the perspective that the interest rates are going lower. So after 3 months, you might get actually better rates than 3 months ago. Is that once the maturity of your first loan is coming to an end, you take another loan. With the proceeds, you repay the first loan, and then you have only the second one, right? So you are basically all the time you're kind of doing this zigzag sort of balancing. That's why I mentioned also never use all your stack just for one loan, because in case you wanted to repay the previous one, take another one, you still need additional collateral. So let's say if you have one Bitcoin, if you use half of your Bitcoin for the first loan, then a couple of days before the maturity, you can take another loan and use the funds to repay the previous one with the interest, right? So you can keep on kind of rolling it like this for as long as you want to, basically.
Yeah, that strategy is very interesting to me personally. Buy, borrow, die is one of the terms that's come around this idea of not paying income tax, not paying capital gains, and literally living off of loans or using those loans to buy appreciating assets. And there's a lot of interesting thoughts around that. We won't go into the weeds there, but that's what I think is also really interesting about the product you guys are offering for those people that are interested in that. So let's just kind of wrap up here. Who should maybe not get a Bitcoin loan, right? Because there are risks. You could lose your Bitcoin. You could default. There are definitely some risks here. What's the type of person if they were like, hey, Igor, I really want to go get a Bitcoin loan, and you learned about their situation and said, you know what? Probably not you. I don't think this is probably a smart idea for you. Maybe a different approach would be better. Any sort of horror stories you've heard of, or just sort of general helpful, I wouldn't call it financial advice, but just insights from somebody who's on the other end of this, knowing there are certain people that are probably better suited for this than others?
Yeah, listen, I would flip it. I would actually say that, this is the beauty of Bitcoin-backed loans, that, as you said, like it used to be a domain of the super rich, the wealthy and institutions, like never selling their assets and just borrowing against them and never paying taxes, income taxes and all that. So what I love about Bitcoin is that you don't have to be a millionaire or super wealthy person. You can start living this life, right? So if you do your math, calculate your life costs, income and things like that, you can actually come up with a healthy borrowing strategy, right? I still remember actually even from the good old times, when my grandparents or even my parents were strongly against loans, right? If someone had to take a loan, everybody was like, "Oh my God, like poor person, why would I do that?" So that's and maybe coming to your very first question, like if people understood what it means, what we call sometimes the asset-backed living, like you have a great asset that you want to carry for many years. Pass it on to the next generation of in your family and all that. This is the strategy that really helps you with that. But now, what's important when people ask like when should I take a loan, I always say when the time is right. Some people are trying to time the market, like, oh, is it a good time to take a loan now or later? I'm always saying like, just think about your life situation, think about what do you need it for? Are you going to be able to repay it? And do you have enough collateral for potential top up, in case Bitcoin price starts dropping, right? So doesn't matter if you're a billionaire or millionaire or unemployed person and someone who doesn't have a bank account. The beauty of Bitcoin is that it really allows anyone holding Bitcoin using this strategy, but really always think about, be conservative, in other words, right? So think about the LTV, think about the potential liquidation, think about volatility, obviously, of Bitcoin, and be able to or get ready to top up the collateral in the worst case scenario, right? In terms of the horror stories, I wouldn't say, as I mentioned, we've processed almost like 150 million worth of notional. It's more than around or more than 3,300 Bitcoin as collateral processed. And we literally had only a handful of defaults, zero price liquidation on a handful of defaults, because it can happen, right? Like, suddenly the income that you were supposed to get never happened. You don't have additional Bitcoin to take additional loan. So we literally had only a handful of liquidations, which again just proves to the fact that Bitcoiners never want to lose their Bitcoin. And again, on the flip side, I think this strategy, we've heard many great stories about how people are using Bitcoin-backed loans in real life. One of the very popular ones is obviously leverage. Like, you can buy actually more Bitcoin by taking a loan on top of your Bitcoin. But the stories that we've heard, from like investment opportunities. There was recently one of our users who came to me and he was saying like, look, you helped me to start a new company. I've been always a big fan of Pokemon cards. And thanks to Bitcoin-backed loans, now I was able to start my company. And he keeps on rolling his loans, for since the beginning of the platform actually, and he's super happy. And he said like, thanks to this strategy, 3 years ago, Bitcoin was, I don't know, 20, 25K. Now it's 80, 90, 100, whatever. So I didn't lose the upside. I didn't have to pay taxes. And it actually helped me to start my business, which is now flourishing, right? So these are the stories that we love to hear and are very motivating for us.
Absolutely, man. That's a great story. And I love that, people have used that to pursue their passion, pursue their dream, build that business, Absolutely. Or do whatever they were going to do. And using Bitcoin as that gift to be able to do that and use your services. So great, man. Really glad to hear that. Okay. Well, thank you for that. If you guys have any further questions that we didn't get into the weeds on, there's still that Slido link. You guys can do that. Let me go ahead and just break us away real quick. We're going to do another giveaway. Now we're going to give away our Bitcoin only Trezor Safe 5 wallet here. So this is going to be for one of the comments of a random comment selector that we have for the episode that was released on Saturday. Again, if you do want to win any of these, just make sure that you're very active in our comment section, okay? So either it's the Saturday episode or the Tuesday episode. Make sure you do leave a comment under there. More than a word, put a little bit of effort into it. We appreciate that. But without further ado, let's raffle off this Trezor Safe 5 Bitcoin only hardware wallet. Here we go. The winner this week is S. Shandong. And welcome to the channel. Thank you so much for being a part of this movement. And congratulations, you got yourself a Bitcoin 5, Safe 5 hardware wallet getting mailed to you. So make sure you do reach out to the team, info at the Game of Satoshi, and give them your mailing address and your information. And of course, make sure you do verify yourself. So that way we can make sure we can get that right out to you. So thank you so much for being a part of this great community. Okay, Igor, coming right back to you, man. Got a couple of rapid fire questions I want to run by you. We won't do too many. I know we are sort of getting close to the hour here, but what's your take on if the governments of the world tried to start banning Bitcoin tomorrow, what do you think would happen?
I think people would just get scared initially, but then things would get back to normal because you can't stop Bitcoin.
And what's one thing you wish you understood more fully about Bitcoin when you first learned about it?
Same thing as the first question. I never thought that I could live off my Bitcoin just like the wealthy people do, living off their other assets, right? So understanding the concept of and the difference between actually the collateralization models, because there are different ways you can collateralize your Bitcoin. So knowing this, or if had I known this before, I think that would definitely change or shift my mindset.
What's one mistake that taught you the most about freedom and responsibility?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think it was the situation when I was in Russia, actually, that there are certain things in life that are not in your hands, even though they look like they're in your hands on the surface, right? So learning what real self-sovereignty means, having a plan B, and being the master of your life is something that you actually need to think about and need to learn, rather than it's given by anyone else.
Okay, final one. Why will Bitcoin succeed in the long run?
It's the hardest asset in the world. It's an incredible technology, and it is not built to make people wealthy. It is built to liberate and free people from the money printer, which is really ruining a lot of lives around the globe, right? So I think Bitcoin is the answer to this.
Great, man. All right, we're going to hit a couple of questions here from the chat. Thank you guys so much for using the Slido link below to post your questions. Okay. First question, what kind of KYC, know your customer compliance requirements, does Firefish have?
Very simple, just like any other financial platform. You need to, if you want to register on the platform without doing any transactions, feel free. No requirements there. But if you want to start transacting, we need to follow certain regulations. So basically, we would require from you the particular tier, particular set of information at the basic level. You just need to scan your ID card and make a selfie, just like on any other platform.
What if you're only working with Bitcoin USDC and no fiat is involved at all? Is KYC still required?
It is because we are unfortunately based in European Union, and we need to follow the regulations here, which do require us to do the KYC for any kind of transaction.
Very cool. What was the biggest challenge for you guys building this trustless borrowing system, creating these sort of smart contracts and having this all pulled together? It seems like a pretty complicated thing. What were the biggest challenges for you guys?
I would say there's been a couple of challenges. We've been lucky actually at the very beginning because we found a great partner. One of the local very successful venture firms just gave us initial funding just by listening to our story. So that was very brave of them, but it turned out to be a good bet. But in terms of the challenges, definitely from the technical perspective, really coming up with something that is robust, transparent, and trust minimized, built on blockchain has been a challenge, right? So coming up with this logic of the 3 out of 3 with the partially signed transactions, with the time logs, thinking of all the possible scenarios, so from the technical perspective, this has been a challenge because on one hand, people have been always arguing that DeFi is better, Ethereum is better because it's much more flexible. You can build whatever you want there, and there's no development on Bitcoin. But I think we've proven that even on chain you can actually build something that is very transparent and very secure. So from the technical perspective, this has been one challenge, and the other big challenge, obviously, as you can imagine, our first employee was a lawyer. So, and that's for obvious reasons, right? So the legal frameworks and all these things around that has been a massive burden for us. Even recently, we had to go through what they call in European Union the MiCA process, like it's a new pan crypto sort of European regulation. So that has taken a lot of our time. So I would say if it wasn't for this, it would be much more pleasant. But it is what it is. We had to comply.
What are you had that great story of that customer who built his business, but maybe you have other stories of customers that did some very foolish things with their Bitcoin backed loan. Any interesting stories come to the top of your head?
There's always one thing, and we always warn the borrowers in particular that when they're locking their Bitcoin and when they're setting their return address, we super strongly recommend that their return address is fully in their ownership and it's not an exchange address. Because what happened to one of our users, stupid story, he locked his Bitcoin, took a year and a half loan, and he used a return address from whatever exchange he was using at that time. And the exchange, meanwhile, managed to disappear, right? So basically, no one had access to the return address. So there was no way, if we send the Bitcoin back to him to that particular address, it could have disappeared forever, right? So always, when you're the borrower, always make sure that the address that you're using is fully in your control because exchanges might change their minds, whatever. It might never lend there once it's repaid and all that. So there have been a couple of stories like this, but that's something people should be really fully aware of. But we are, as I mentioned, there's a big warning. Like, please make sure that the address that you're putting here is your own address and act accordingly. I would say, yeah.
Smart. Okay, and last up, you talked a little bit about having maybe like a bank account on the platform. Talk a little bit more about, and then like what other features maybe you guys are thinking about and maybe actively building right now that you're really excited to release.
So this is going to be, I think, very cool because one of the challenges nowadays is that all the transactions are peer-to-peer, right? So if you and me agree on a loan, right? So you're the borrower, I'm the lender. You want to borrow, let's say, 5,000, 10,000 euros. I would be sending those euros from my own account to your own account, right? And depending on the relationships you have with your bank, depending on your credit history, you might or you might not get into bit of a trouble, right? So some users have been complaining that their banks have stopped those payments. They were asking questions like, where are these payments coming from, this and that. Obviously, you can actually download the full contract or the sort of statement from Firefish that this was a peer-to-peer loan. We do not mention Bitcoin there because some banks are still sort of allergic to Bitcoin and crypto in general. But these bank accounts will actually then help you with a couple of additional things. So first and foremost, the transactions, which even nowadays might take a couple of days. If I send you money, we might need to wait a couple of days. Once you have the account on the platform, and it's not going to be basically run by us. There we have a third-party payment processing partner that will be creating those bank accounts for the users. So all the loans will be settled immediately. We wouldn't have to wait also for the feedback from the lender that like, yeah, I've sent the money, and waiting for the borrower to confirm, yes, I've received the money. So everything will be instantaneous. And there's a couple of additional benefits, right? So you can actually deposit money because it's your bank account. Basically, when you're withdrawing the money, it's coming from your bank account. So your bank wouldn't be maybe asking questions, and all that. And then also it would allow us to bring additional features. I don't want to maybe sort of run ahead our cards, but related to these kind of features in terms of having wallets basically on the platform, there are additional things that we can build in the future. That will also depend on how the licensing process in Europe goes. But I think there are a couple of very super cool features. We mentioned Bitcoin-backed credit cards, for example, or even on-ramp, right? Like a lot of users are using the platform to basically get money and buy more Bitcoin. So imagine once you have the money on the platform, one click and you bought Bitcoin instantaneously. So there's a lot of cool things that we can build on top of that.
Very exciting, man. It's really cool to see you guys grow and have this thing really taken off. And I'm just really personally interested in learning a lot more about potentially working with you guys as a customer for sure of getting a loan. Firefish.io, that is the website. If somebody's watching this, they're interested in learning more, go to the website. I'm assuming any other sort of tips, insights you want to give to somebody who's curious about what you guys could offer them?
Yeah, definitely go through our website. We do have also a YouTube channel where if you want to learn how every single component of the platform works, you can find like a very short walkthrough videos with my AI avatar, sorry for that, available. Or you can follow us also on Twitter or on X, basically Firefish_IO, where we're posting all the updates. And last but not least, we are always very keen on traveling around different conferences, right? So as I mentioned, we just got back from Latin America, where we were in Buenos Aires, in El Salvador. So if you see us at any of these conferences, just stop by. We'll be happy to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin-backed lending.
Right on. Igor Neumann, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you for educating us. Thank you for creating a great service for Bitcoiners so that we don't have to sell our Bitcoin. I think that's just such a valuable proposition and a great thing and a great option for many of us to be able to have moving forward. So thank you for being an ally, obviously, of the game of Satoshi and just for the Bitcoin movement as a whole. We really appreciate you, man.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Jesse. Thanks for having us, and really, you guys are doing a really great job with the game, and looking forward to the next episodes.
All right. Thank you so much, man. All right, guys, we've got one more giveaway today, and then we'll go ahead and let you guys go. This is going to be for the Guardian Mini Miner. So if you guys don't have your own miner, this one might be a great way for you guys to get started. It's small, it's compact, and it's really easy to use. Of course, you guys also can get access to the free PDF, which is basically your sort of personal guide for how to get started with solo mining. So if you guys want to follow along, it's guardiansofblockchain.com, another great supporter sponsor of the show. So make sure you guys do go to that website, get the free PDF, and get started with your solo mining. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to raffle off this bad boy. This is the Guardian Mini to another random YouTube comment under this week's mission. So let's go ahead and pick the winner for this week, and it will be Mr. Benabol. Congratulations, Mr. Benabol. I thought I saw him in the chat here. I don't think I see him in the chat. All right. Ending the gold standard was the moment Sound Money left the chat and Bitcoin started typing. That's actually a great comment. Actually, I would say a pretty top contender for a top comment as well. So congrats to you, Mr. Benabol. Thank you so much for being a part of this and for leaving your great comments. Really quick, guys, we will be back, obviously, every Friday as we are here at 6 p.m. Central Eastern Time. December 12th, that obviously is the next Friday you guys will see us here. If you guys need to reach out to the team for any reason, you want a prize, you're curious about something, you are confused about something, whatever it is, info@thegameofsatoshi.com is how you can get access to the team. Of course, we have our link tree down below if you want to join the Telegram group, which is a great way for you to get those answers even much quicker. Join on there so you can basically ask your questions there. Follow us, obviously, on X. Subscribe here on YouTube. Leave a like for today's video if you appreciated this content. We really do appreciate your guys' support. And for those of you that are feeling extra generous, we would love to have you guys donate to our Geyser Fund. Again, 100% of these sats go into the prize pool. We are obviously at that one Bitcoin prize pool amount, but we are going to be adding more and more to it with your donations as we get closer and closer to our sort of final date here in early mid January. So thanks to all of you guys that have donated. If you want to donate, that link is also in the link tree below. So I'll leave you guys right now with that. Thank you so much. Again, go support firefish.io. Click on that link below to learn more about them. Reach out to Igor and the team and find out how you could potentially get yourself a Bitcoin-backed loan. Of course, being safe, being conservative, doing it responsibly. We do think that that's a really, really wise approach to this great product. So that's all I got for you guys today. You guys have a fantastic rest of your weekends, and we'll see you guys here in 1 week from today. And stay tuned. Obviously, next mission dropping tomorrow, Saturday morning here on the channel. So make sure you do stay tuned in for that one. We'll see you guys soon.